morning, everyone. Welcome to the Wood Memorial Talking Horses. Sarah Albadwi and Andy Serling as we get ready to talk about a 13 race card today, and I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, plenty of great stakes races. As you were saying earlier this week, it's put up or shut up time for a lot of these horses to get into the Oaks or the Derby and stamp themselves as contenders or pretenders. And I think that we have a mix of both on today's card.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, too. There's a couple things going on. One is the Santa Anita Derby has to be, in a lot of ways, the most important prep. Because if journalism and or Barnes are able to run back to the kind of numbers that they ran last time out, it's really going to stamp one or both of them as sort of the major, the big names going into it. If they don't run back to it, it casts a little doubt on whether or not you can rely on them to run those kind of figures going forward. And then it opens it up to other races, obviously including the Wood. But I think, you've got journalism out there. He's the big dog right now, and we'll see what kind of numbers, but nobody in the preps up until now have been able to come close to duplicating the kind of effort he put last time out.
And with a good race by him, he's going to be your favorite going into the Kentucky Derby.
doubt.
And if Barnes runs a similar race, then he can get himself into the picture as well. And it's those two and everybody else having something to make up on them versus everything being so wide open as it still is until we see that number again from either of them.
Yeah, I think it's sort of like everybody's, you obviously you want to do well in the Wood, you want to come up with a big race, you want to have your horse have a real chance, and there are certainly players that could do that. But everybody's got to be keeping an eye on that race because of the quality of what we saw from those horses in a prior start. And Citizen Bull, I'm not a fan, but he's obviously been pretty good in his races, and we'll see what he does as well. We got a lot to talk about, so head over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member, use the promo code MATCH200. We'll match you a $200 initial deposit. Of course, Chancellor McPatrick will be now. It's the final Derby prep, and always used to be as the Bluegrass, which will be run on Tuesday. And I don't know if you even realize this. Are you aware that until probably the late 80s to early 90s, the Bluegrass was run on the Thursday 9 days before the Derby? It was the same as the Jim Dandy. The Jim Dandy used to be run 9 days before the Travers as a prep. It was just a different world back then. The test was the same thing. It was run like either 9 or 10 days before the Alabama. And I remember there's that great story about when Alydar won the Bluegrass, how the Marquis who owned him, Calumet, were pretty elderly, and they drove their car up right along the fence to watch the races. And those were the days when there was no announcer, which was the case when I used to go there in the 90s. I'm pretty sure when Ali Sheba was in it for winning the Derby, I think it was still a Thursday. So it's not unprecedented.
There was a fictional series of books about racing that I read when I was a kid that was based on real events, and they were always talking about they didn't want to go in the Bluegrass. It was too close to the Derby, having that limited time available. And, of course, now things have changed, and the Lexington has kind of taken that place of being the last one with the last chance hope to get in. But, I mean, the points are just so different now.
Nowadays, I don't know. It's going to have to really be on the cusp of getting in. And, but back then the Wood and all the preps were 2 weeks before. It was a very different situation. Even when the Bluegrass was moved, it was still 2 weeks before the Derby. And, back then, the Louisiana Derby and the Florida Derby were preps for the Bluegrass Wood Memorial, and those races are very different in the Arkansas Derby as well. A very, very different landscape. Anyway, what else we got, Ed? $5,000 hit and split, the early pick 4, race 2. I also want to remind people there are 5 pick 5s today. The normal ones in races 1 and 9, N-4 or N-5 and the first race, those will be ones that could carry. There are 3 mandatory payout pick 5s starting in race 3, 5, and 7. So there are 5 total pick 5s in this card. Don't lose sight of that. And of course, you'll want to opt in for this and play the early pick 4 and perhaps get a piece of that $5,000. Don't laugh. I have a lot of friends who've done extremely well with these hit and splits over time. We have not much more, right, Eddie? We're on from 12 until 7 with the Dubai World Cup moving. It changed a lot of things, and that's one of the reasons that our post times changed. Our first race now at 12:30, not 12:10. In the World Cup, I think at 12:15. Want to keep away from those races, and Keisha and I will be on early on the show discussing and talking about our races, but also the 3 big races. Dubai, I got to tell you, they came up pretty thin. I mean, isn't Romantic Warrior and Forever Young, almost complete cinches in their races on paper?
They're definitely standouts. I mean, you can look at some of those fields and have an interest in a couple of different players, but you have a star in each of them as well that makes a lot of sense and is very hard to knock.
I was thinking of playing maybe like one bigger and one smaller pick 3, betting against Rebels Romance in the second race. I think he's become one of the most opportunistic horses of all time, and I thought thought there were some better horses in there. Those races, 12-15 for the Shima, and then the Dubai Duty Free, and then the World Cup. Anyhow, they'll be on America's Day at the Races. Race number 1. Take a look at Diabolico to start it out, the number 7 horse, who, at the end of the day, based on the figures, this is the horse to beat. I'm not a huge fan, but I think this one is the one to beat.
Yeah, I like the improved speed that this horse has shown sprinting over the last 2 starts, both of them being consistent and finishing third 2 starts ago, second last time out to Shaking the Bell, who this horse had finished third to in the start prior to that. When you look at the company kept, you kind of just get a little bit tired of horses like Waja, who was finally able to break through with that victory. But even from this last start, remember the Chief did come back and run an improved race relative to this, finishing third again on Thursday, though not one of his better races overall. So it seems as though this figure is holding up moving forwards, and he makes some sense.
Yeah, I shouldn't say he's the horse to beat. The horse to beat is True Connection, who is running the faster races and cuts back in distance. The problem with True Connection is he's just had so many chances, and you and I are both going to go on a horse that's supposed to be the speed and has had only 2 chances, and I just thought he faced a much, much better field, and he gets a positive rider change.
I also thought that pace was fairly contentious as well, and to come off of the layoff that he did, which was over a year, and to fade after showing some good early position, I don't want to hold that against him too much, and now he takes that next little drop in class here from the optional $40,000 to the $20,000, second off the bench. You have to imagine they're going from the rail, no question about it, as long as he gets out of the gate. And when this race was originally drawn on Sunday, I liked him. I like him now and here as well, and he just seems like the horse that has the opportunity to fit well at this spot as well as have some forward position.
Yeah, I think Beach Blanket is dangerous in this race. Just going to the Cantermachi barn, Ilke has been doing a really good job. And you're talking about a horse that the last time he sprinted in Saratoga, he ran a figure of 62, which might make him the horse to beat. So I think he's a dangerous player as well, and I sort of put them around the number 3. I'm going to let Diabolico beat me. In this race. I want to say something else about something else. Oh, we're going to break after the 6th race, by the way. Should clear that with Eddie first. But Eddie, we're breaking after 6. You all right with that? Okay, Eddie's okay with it, so we're okay with it. Race number 2 features the return of General Partner, who comes back. And listen, I understand there's a little bit of a trust issue with this horse. He ran only 1 race last year, and he ran a huge effort, and unfortunately was injured coming out of the race and not able to get back to the races now until about 10 months later. He's obviously an extremely talented horse. I'm not trying to beat him. I hope he runs really well, but I can understand having some trepidation, especially the barn has been a little bit on the cold side.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want to try to knock him, you might say the layoff, the fact that he does have only that 1 race on the resume last year. And, of course, looking at Belmont Stakes Day at Saratoga, it was arguably the day that speed and the rail were the most beneficial of those first couple of days of that shortened meet that we had at Belmont at Saratoga. But I don't think that any of those things were necessarily lending to his performance that day. He was already good as a juvenile. He came back with a big performance that day. If he runs that race, he's going to win here. And even if he regresses a little bit off of that race, he's still a major contender as well. So I think that we both kind of looked at 24 Mamba as being the price in here that you might want to get involved, as he's sort of coming back into some decent form, and now he moves to the Cantermachi barn. But I wasn't trying to beat General Partner either.
No, I'm not either. I asked Chad Brown. He told me that he is training well going into this race. And, I'm laughing a little bit because I say, the barn's been a little bit cold. Chad Brown's, he's really sucking. He's only winning at 20%. I mean, you get to the point where you have this expectation. And my friend Joe Applebaum talks. We talk about this a lot with trainers and, cold or hot. And Joe maintains, and I have an enormous amount of respect, has studied a lot of numbers and different things over the years. He maintains that the real number you're supposed to look at is in the money. Is there a consistency there in the money? Have their in the money numbers drop down? And he's right, because there's it can be so, the vagaries of, winning or running second. It's a little bit tricky, and he obviously is not particularly underperforming a little bit, but not really, really badly. Victory Way's okay. I don't want to knock him. I thought maybe he was taken a little out of his game because Toxic Gray was so loose last time. They rushed him, but Toxic Gray's loose again. I'm a little bit worried with Toxic Gray that he's kind of fallen off of his peak. Doesn't he feel like if he was a graph, he went like up here and now he's like tailing off a little? Because, okay, Crazy Mason's pretty good. I just thought Toxic Gray was extremely mediocre last time, considering how well he's run in prior races.
And it just seemed like kind of the blanket finish in a way, with Crazy Mason making the big explosive move from far back, and with Crazy Mason, who we'll talk about later, but he was against the racetrack in both of those victories where he had that big explosive late run, or he was the only one to really make up ground on that day.
I would say, see, I don't agree about the last race
No?
because I think he ran very well. I think it was a good rail. And he
Okay.
was on the rail for the majority of the race. So I'm not. I know what you're saying, but we can discuss it more in the Carter.
Yeah.
He's
but
obviously
Toxic Gray, he looks
exciting.
like the speed again.
He is.
For the
But
most
General
part
Partner's
here.
not going to let him go far
No,
away. We'll see what happens in race number 2. Race number 3. I've decided. No, this is not the one that I made a ridiculous pick. That comes a little later today. Let's take a look at the horse that you picked on top. I can see that. I understand that you have this Bruce Levine off layoff numbers. The problem I have with this horse is he's going to be a short price, or a shortish price. And I don't know, man. I mean, you're talking about a horse that now has successive year-plus layoffs. I mean, you don't see a lot of horses that run once a year. And, well, there's that horse, Laurel River. He runs once every year or two.
Sure.
But he also won the Dubai World Cup. This horse is a maiden
Yeah,
claimer.
this is not quite the same
And
league.
I don't know. I mean, I've got him third. I don't know.
I originally had the same horse on top as you for the first 4 races, and they made a couple of changes because it's not quite as interesting conversation. But he was one that, at least I can respect the competition that he was facing in that field. And you know that he can run off of what's a year layoff because he's done it already, at least to show that
Done it
he,
once.
he can maybe
You think he'll
do
be
it
okay in
again. We'll see.
2026 when he comes back in April?
Yeah, he'll be in for the bottom of maiden claiming at that point. But no, Excellent Men is okay for his horses that were going to beat him in that race over a year ago. I remember we had looked at that ridiculous ride that Excellent Men had gotten when he was still able to run okay, and then switching to David Jacobson. He's been competitive at levels similar to this, and I can see that was in last early, but he wasn't too far off of things, and I just thought that I wanted somewhat of a new face coming into this spot, but there's a case to be made for really the horses that we've honed in on as having within the
Yeah,
top
I
three.
don't think, unless you want to take somebody a little wacky, the 5, 9, and 10 are the ones that have some form in this race. The worry with Total Silence is how poorly he ran last time. He really didn't run well, but he's run well enough in his prior races that to suggest that he can't win this race would be absolutely ridiculous. I don't like Drive Through, neither do you. He's another horse. I mean,
Aren't you just tired of him a little bit?
yeah,
he's
no,
been
I'm actually more than a little tired of
More
him.
than a little?
Yeah, he's
Extremely?
just not, and he was awful last time out.
Yeah.
The thing about 9 and 4 is this is a significant rider change to Manny Franco, and this horse was completely eliminated at the break last time. I hadn't realized in watching it live just how bad it was, but this horse was really taken out. He was bumped hard, and when you talk, I feel as though trouble is almost an exponential thing based on your quality. The good horses can overcome some trouble. The mediocre horses have a lot of trouble doing it. He lost to a first-time starter, was sort of the only other horse in the race, but I actually thought his effort was a lot better than it looks. He's got the figs to do it going back, and I like the switch to Manny. Obviously, you don't disagree. You were interested in him
He
as
just makes a
well.
lot of sense.
Race number 4, is one of these sort of trust issue races, right? And why don't we start with the trust by showing Cumberland Blues and Valenzen Day? I went back a ways on both of them to show when they hit the wire together, and it's interesting. This was kind of the sign when Cumberland Blues beat Valenzen Day that Valenzen Day had tailed off a little bit. They dropped him so sharply, and he held his form a long time, and now he's all right. I don't want to make too much of his last race. That's the thing. A 1.25 mile race, the runoff win. Do I really want to say it? But then when you see Linda bring him back almost 3 months later, 2.5 months later, and running him for 10,000, he may win, but I don't know. It feels like the siren's going off a little bit, and Cumberland Blues has been atrocious since that race.
Yeah, I mean, with Cumberland Blues, he is getting back to a level that makes some sense for him after trying a couple of spots that were a bit tougher. But I totally agree with Valenzen Day. It just seems like the sun has set on that period of time where he was showing up with big effort after big effort when he was spotted correctly, even when switching to different outfits as well. And I think that there are some excuses to be made for the 1.25 miles for sure. Maybe a 1.1 miles just just a little bit further than is his ideal, and he did. At
But
least
even his loss to Montebello, while it wasn't a bad race and it might make him good enough to win here,
It wasn't
it
the
was still a
same as what we
departure
were
from the
seeing.
races he had been running.
I agree.
And it's also when you couple that with the fact that Linda's dumping him in for $10,000. And listen, she wins when these horses drop. It's not like these drops for Linda. They win quite often at shorter prices. I'll put it this way. I think we both aren't going to be surprised when he wins the race, but neither one of us wanted to put him on top. Is that fair?
Completely. And I think that you do have a couple of other horses that have a look that are coming in that are going to be slightly better prices that maybe we haven't seen in a while or have some questions to answer or taking that drop in class. And I think that we both have two of those types, first and second, in here.
Yeah, and let me see. Do we have a? I think you have Empty Tomb on top. We'll show him winning. This is the first race of the Saratoga meeting. It's interesting. I was really a coin flip on these two horses as well, and I feel like
I
you
saw
were
that
as
you
well,
picked
and you just
best
sort of
bet,
went
so
the
then
other
I went
way.
the other way,
But
yeah.
I could have done the same thing
Yep.
if you went 4-9, gone 9-4. I'll let you talk about him.
Yeah, I mean, this was a good aggressive ride where he was able to take command early on and win with a decent number for the $20,000 level, going the mile in an eighth. And he's had some starts and stops over his really past year of running, but he's shown up with okay efforts. Two back going for the $40,000, had some early speed, and even had some early speed last time as well, though he didn't really do much running in there and faded badly. But at the same time, then he's off again, and now he drops to the 10,000. I like that he's shown the early speed, which it does seem like there's going to be some horses with forward position in
But he
here.
doesn't need to be in front to win. He's
Absolutely
rated
not.
before. He can be forward.
And he also just hasn't been at a level like this where he is dropping to that bottom.
And I don't know that it's related, but Robbie Falcone has just been quiet. He just hasn't run that many horses. I see he's like 3 for 40-ish going into it. But, you know, when I think about him, I don't feel like I'm not – I just don't feel like he's run that many horses. And Robbie's always been a trainer that can be streaky, as a lot of guys are. It just feels like the horse has been running. I look at his record and think, he's not cold. He's just not running live horses. And Castle Chaos ran extremely
very
well
well
yesterday
yesterday.
for him yesterday. Now, whether or not that means an Empty Tomb is going to is another question. I'm just going to try to wire the field with Best Bet as the other horse and an alternative at a slightly better price than Blenzen Day. He's the speed. He got caught in a very tough race last time. He drops down. He's a Jekyll and Hyde. He either sucks or he's really good. And I'm going to hope he can wire the field. But, you know, I'm not going to be surprised when Blenzen Day wins. But like you, I prefer to take one of the 4 or 9.
Completely.
Race number 5. Race number 5. This is the one where I went a little bit crazy. Let's
I
take a
looked
look
at that horse. It's not that crazy.
At Tap It Easy. You and I both have 4th. I think David made, not the favorite, made the horse. No, I don't think my horse is ridiculous, but I just a bit of a price against these. This is the race 2 back for this horse. And to be fair, there's no reason this horse couldn't improve from there. And something must have gone wrong last time out. He's clearly a player. I just wasn't very thrilled with him overall. I didn't love this field that much in there. I don't know. He can win. I just preferred others.
It was just such a disappointment last time. And I see that they put the blinkers on and he was getting Lasix for the first time, and now they take the blinkers right back off. And maybe there's some sort of angle with that the barn is thinking that he just didn't really appreciate that equipment. But it was just such a big regression from that race 2 back, which was his first dirt start, and even from his turf race and debut, that I just couldn't trust at what's going to be a short price in here because he does have that one big number.
I think he's one who can win. I just think we both want to go in a slightly different direction. You're going to Dear Chairman. I'm a little worried that Dear Chairman is a little bit distance challenged.
I think that's fair. I think that looking at his 7 furlong race where he finished second to give me my theme music, that was one of his better efforts with a 64 Beyer Speed Figure 3 starts ago. The stretch out didn't work, though the rail was playing strongly that day, I thought, and he was favored and was disappointing, but he did have that little stumble at the start.
He stumbled. He was against the
some
track, and it was the
excuses.
distance. I don't want to make too much of it.
And looking at his last race, cutting back to the 6 furlongs, he didn't run that badly, even though he was well defeated in there to finish third. I don't think it's necessarily proven to me that he absolutely can't handle the mile distance, but I don't disagree that maybe he would be a little bit better going just a touch shorter.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm right about it, and I'm not sure he could win this race. He's a horse I know in my top 4 that I have open and certainly can win. I think Palace Boss is a very key horse in this race, and I was going to pick him on top. I just decided to take a horse who would be a much bigger price on top. Palace Boss, he was awful last time. I do feel like he was spinning his wheels a little bit racing inside of horses, and I actually think he's going to benefit from an outside draw. But I'm also getting a little sick and tired of him, too.
I like him stretching back out to the mile because it seems like when we look at his best efforts, those were the efforts going the mile distance. But it's also possible that then with that time off and coming back, that we're not going to see a race quite like that 71 finishing second that we did. And so there are some questions to be answered. I think that he's going to be a fair enough price if you think he's going to
I
get
think
back to
5
one
to
of
1's a
those
very
races.
generous price on him.
But at the same time, I think that there could be some concerns for sure over that last race. Even the one before that doesn't necessarily get him get the job done in here.
No, but it's a lot better. You're
It
right. And it
is.
was a little bit off a layoff. Too honest Mischief, who's the horse who's the morning line favorite. I actually thought this horse ran very well last time. We both got him third, but I think he's perfectly logical in here. He might be the most logical horse in the race. That's why David made him the favorite.
Yeah, it's just a horse that's had a couple more chances than some others, but he's been fairly consistent, and you can't really knock what he did last time by any means. So I think that if you're looking at that race as being one that can play here with the likes of Palace Boss, you can't dismiss him, of course.
Yeah, I always assume that Oliver Hosang and Dalton Brown are going to team up for a win on the biggest days of the year in New York, and it being Wood Day. Why not? But this is a horse that, fortunately we may get a couple of showers later, but there's no major rain predicted. I did think about that with the big figure 2 races back. This horse is supposed to be in front. And one thing about Dalton, he's not afraid to send a speed horse. And I actually thought he ran okay last time, dueling for the lead, going 7. He's going to be the speed. And I had originally put him like second or third. I think I picked the race 10-3-4. And then I was looking and I said, you know what? If I'm going to put in this race, if I'm going to put the 4 third, I can put this horse on top because if the 10 wins, listen, 5 to 1 at Palace Boss, I think, is a very generous price. He might be a better 5 to 1 than Ferris Muir will be at 10 to 1. But I just thought he could be the speed, and his recent form was good enough to say he could be a contender here. I'm not going to tell you I love him, and a lot of people are going to shake their head and say I'm not taking those connections. I am.
And I think that I was looking at the forecast, and if it was just going to be a little bit more leaning towards some sort of sloppy sealed track.
Thank God it's not.
I would kind of go in his direction, and it doesn't mean that he can't run that race on a fast track. I think that he's interesting at what's going to be a square price in this field.
Race number 6, and we'll break after the 6th. We're going to start with Quiet Wisdom on the outside. I'm going to take a look at him winning here almost a year ago when he won last year. I don't know what to do with this horse because he really ran well. Then he came back. Okay, I think you actually liked him in his next start. I'm not because he ran, and I think,
liked him at one point. It was
yeah,
probably when he didn't win.
Maybe it was somebody else liked him. And I agree, he ran a little bit in his return. Okay, he got caught at a mile and 1/8, but that was a slow pace that held together. He was awful, and now Todd's making a substantial drop. I had some numbers for Todd. I forgot to add maidens to it, but his numbers are non-maidens. His numbers are just okay on these kind of drop downs. He may win. I didn't want to put him on top as the favorite.
It's an aggressive drop, and I think that we do see a field that's kind of strong for the level at face value as well, because you do have a couple of horses taking a drop in class that used to be competitive against much tougher. And, okay, the blinkers go on. Well, he wore the blinkers early on in his career, and he has plenty of numbers that could win here, but this is such an aggressive drop in class for him, and he's had 2 of those stops and starts as well, having that time off from April to November and then having that time off from January until now, and it just seems like they're done with him.
They are done. He's probably going to get claimed. He's a New York bred. Well, he's not with 2 condition. He's never winning that condition. I don't know. His last race was bad. Talk to us about Beachwalker.
He needs to get back to one of his better races, but I think that
yes, he does.
But I think that there's supposed to be, at least on paper, some speed in this race. And I think that a couple of his recent starts, he's sort of threatened to do a little bit of running where he kind of makes that move and ends up flattening out. And it just seems like he's been in spots where he hasn't really gotten that pace to rally into that I think that he appreciates a little bit more. And if you go back to his race when he was against Mr. Swagger and Optic Way, and he ended up finishing 3rd in there. He was 3rd in the start before that. He's in against much tougher with some horses running some numbers we hadn't seen from them in quite some time. Win on Weekends did have that big performance going that 1.25 miles 3 starts ago. I don't really have a big excuse for the last 2 races.
Well, the one thing I think your point is well taken. Obviously, I don't disagree with you. I've got the horse 4th. I think win is that the horse out of that race, and I've got Active Duty coming out of that race 2nd. It was a slow-paced race, and the pace really held together, and we were interested in some closers, and he kind of got lost in there. So I totally see what you're saying about him, and I mean, I'm going to say a similar thing about Active Duty. It's not that significantly different. The difference with Active Duty is you got a trainer who this is about the only horse that he's run that hasn't run particularly well. I thought he got a little bit lost in that race, to be honest. It wasn't Romero's fault. He was asking him early. It's like he was closer. He dropped out. He made a little run at the end. But I think both of these horses,
They were
and we
compromised.
both have them in, we sort of mirrored just to, you've taken the 11 on top. I've in the 3/4. I've gone with the 11 fourth. But I see the same thing you're talking about. They were compromised by pace, and there should be some pace in this race. So I think you make a lot of sense with them. Listen, we'll look at Prove Worthy running second in December 12th. I know he's dropping precipitously. Robbie Falcone has very good numbers dropping horses precipitously. Non-maidens, 50% drop in the dirt, 8 for 31, 208 ROI. In routes, he's 5 for 15, 284 ROI. So when Robbie drops them, they usually run pretty well. And you can say, well, why is he dropping this horse? He's a 5-year-old. He's not an 8-year-old. He's dropping him right away. It could be a bad sign, and I have no problem if somebody says I'm not touching him at a shortest price because of that drop. But for me, I just think he's the best horse in the race, and Rob's numbers are good enough in those situations that I'm going to stick with him.
And he has those 2 races at a mile and an eighth that are both definitely good enough to win here, and running second to some company that would be very heavily favored in a spot like this. So I have no knocks
He's
against
the horse
him.
to beat.
Absolutely.
You've got him second. Is this the UAE Derby that's being run right now?
I have no
We're going
idea,
to take a
but
break so everybody
could
can
be.
watch the UAE Derby. Sarah and I will be back with the later portion of the card, the latter portion, which includes a lot of stake races. We'll be right back.
Horse racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got 'em. Huge payouts? You bet. With Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet with Naira Bets. Join now for a new member bonus at NairaBets.com.
I'm so
Welcome
glad
back,
no
Doug.
one had to sit through
Sarah and I
that.
were trying to figure out who was in the UAE Derby. The
Heart
winner,
of Honor.
who won it?
Heart of Honor.
We
was
think the
six.
6 just got up over the 1. The Gotham winner
Oh,
was
they're
last.
showing the 1 though.
They're showing the
as your
1.
winner.
They're saying winner, Admire Daytona. Okay. The Gotham winner did not get the lead and may
Did
have
not do
finished
much running.
last, actually. 1-6-2-8 in the UA Derby. Race number 7, the first stake, the Distaff run today. And we'll start out by showing the Barbara Frischi. My question with the 1, who I have second, you have on top, how concerned are you that this horse really likes a wet track? Because I think it's fair to say the big improvements come in a wet track. Having said that, the races 3 and 4 back are pretty fast too. But these big races have been on sealed tracks. But you know what? She's the lone speed on this paper in this race again.
Well, I think that's a good point to question, and perhaps if there was other pace in this race, other legitimate pace that I thought could be contentious in the later stages of this race, I would try to make that argument against her as well. From the rail, she's the controlling speed in here. She's been ultra consistent. She's finished ahead of some of these, and when I was splitting hairs between her or a horse like Sea Dancer, she doesn't have to deal with that cutback in distance as well.
Yeah, I love a turn back, and we'll take a look at Sea Dancer and winning last time, beating headline numbers. But the problem between the two of them is, and you and I agree on this, is that I love a turn back, but it's not like she's a huge price in here, and you've got one horse who's controlling at a fairly moderate pace, and another horse who's completely pace dependent, cutting back in distance. And to me, it just makes me not want to take the 2 and prefer the 1, the same as you.
Well, and you have a situation where this is a horse that's going to have to try to keep up with the horse to her inside, where she's been able to
She can't
have
keep
some
up with
more
her.
position when she's been getting that little bit more distance to work with. And I get that she's pretty exciting since switching over to the dirt at being 2 for 2, and certainly has the right to be in a spot like this after having those ability to adjust and take that step forward even from one dirt start to the next. But I just wanted to go with horses that have that more proven ability over a distance like this, as well as the advantage that she's so likely to have on the front end.
I was going to pick Sea Dancer, and then I just started thinking about the pace situation and thought, you know what, I don't trust this pace for the 2, and I'm going to bet Socially Selective in here. I mean, she had always shown some ability. Mystic Lake, who beat her in the Sugar Squirrel, has run some very good races since then, and I imagine she's a player in the Madison whenever they finally run it at Keeneland, I guess Tuesday. And okay, she was not good last time. I'm not going to argue that. But you know what? It was her second race after a long layoff. She ran big first time. Sometimes horses do regress the second time. If she can get back to that race in December 21st, I think she can win here. And also, she's not that slow. I think she can be in a stalking position in this race. So I'm going to take her as a mild upsetter. Nothing against Irish Maximo. She's the worst to beat. I just didn't want to take her at a short price, but she's the worst to beat.
And I think it's too soon to say this, but the 95 in the Sugar Swirl, it's a little bit of an outlier from her other races.
I don't know about that because the winner ran a 96 and ran a 96 in her next start. Launch came back and ran 3 points higher. So it's an outlier for her, but it was also her first start in a while, and maybe she improved. I agree that you're saying, yes, your point is, and it's a fair one.
And
she's the only race she's done.
Wrong,
so she's not I wouldn't call her a 1-number horse, but it is the only big number she's ever run.
And she doesn't have enough numbers for me to say that it's only that one, but from what we've seen so far.
No, I think that's very fair. I think that's very, very fair on your part. Race number 8 is we'll take a quick break from the stake races and show here. And while I don't think either of us are picking Crimson Light here, and David made the horse 5-2. I imagine he thought, what kind of price is this horse really going to be? Because while this was one of the most remarkable performances ever, and she basically was jumping over, and I think we all thought she'd
jumped
be
over
eased.
the rail, basically.
And you'll pick the race up top of the stretch, and you'll see just how far back she is, because I don't think, hey, we can go, she's not even the picture yet, and she still wins. The problem is that this is proven to be an absolutely horrifically bad field.
It's also a slow race.
Right. I mean, not just a slow race, but even worse than the figure.
And the pace came apart for the most part as well.
Well, it came apart because she was closing and they were just all coming together at the end. Having said that, she doesn't draw the rail again. She's got good works coming in here. I'm sure they've spent a lot of time working, thank you, getting him to break. And to be fair, you could argue he cost himself 10 to 12 lengths, which maybe means he runs an 80, and so they all sucked behind him, but he still might have won this race by a dozen lengths, in which case he would be the favorite in this race, and he should be the favorite. I just wonder, is he going to get overhyped in here? And like you, I don't want him on top, but he can certainly win.
He can, and I think anybody that watches that replay is going to be at least entertained, if not look at this horse as having significant trouble and overcoming it in that spot. But I think there's just so many factors as well with the time off, too, of where has this horse been, and the race not being that fast, and the race not being productive whatsoever, that there are things to want to prompt you to go in a different direction, as well as some horses that are going to be more forward and have some more recency.
Let's look at Nunzio, the horse you have on top. I've kind of given up on him. I know he ran okay last time out. Talk about why you have him on top. I don't, but he can win.
This was a day where I thought the rail was playing strongly, and Brajul was able to spend some time on the inside before angling out and being able to get the victory in here. And I'm still a little bitter that I had picked him the time before, and then he got the win in this spot. And Barry Funny has turned into a different horse now, going into the Bill Morey barn. And I thought that for the majority of the beginning part of this race, before going into the turn, Nunzio was one of two, like Trust Fund, that just never really got to have as much inside position, wherein that was mostly where you wanted to be. I get that his last, if you go 3 back, his race was not that fast in comparison to his last 2, but I thought that just with the outside position he was going to get, as well as the forward position he was likely to have, he just made some sense.
The problem is, and I agree, he was off the rail, but the race fell apart. And, okay, you want to argue in retrospect, did he move a little soon? I don't know. He didn't really. It's just because Brajol ran that big race and he saved ground and angled out. But while I agree he was outside, this was a race that just completely fell apart. So for me, if I'm going to take a horse that was outside in that race, I'm going to take a horse that was forward. And Trust Fund, who was running his second race off the layoff, he was forward. He didn't run well in his return race after the break, but he actually didn't run that badly last time. And for me, I know he finished 5 lengths behind the 10. He's going to be a much bigger price, and I prefer him because he was forward in that race. So he's the one that I want out of the race on a similar thought process. Obviously, I don't disagree with Nunzio. I've got him second here, so I think he's dangerous. What about, there's one other horse I think to talk about here, Quick Ambush. He's supposed to get some pace to close at. I'm just not sure what to do with him.
Me
I didn't
either.
like his last race, but maybe mile and eighth's too far.
I think that there are some excuses to be made for him, and there's a version of Brick Ambush that could have been favored in a spot like this. So I don't want to give up on him completely if I think that the cutback is going to suit him, and I think that he's just going to be sort of with the flow of the race as I imagine it on paper.
Well, he is slow, Sarah. He's going to be coming from way back. I mean, I know the pace figures
Yeah,
will be
it's
quick,
possible.
but he has, I don't know if he's with the flow of the race. He's a bit of a slow poke. And the thing about Nunzio and Trust Fund is they can be forward, and they're not
I
horses
agree.
that have to be in front. That's what worried me about him. I worry he's going to be too far back.
I'm with you, but I think a horse like Stewie is one of the ones that really is a key player in this race just from a pace standpoint
go.
as well. I think that he's going to be your early pace setter, and I think that he ends up making this an honest pace for some of the other horses that want to try to make that move from further back.
See what happens in race 8. We get back into stakes in race 9, the Gazelle. We lost the inside and outside horses in this race, and we'll start the conversation with Ballerina d'Oro. Obviously, Liam in the Dust is not going to play. We didn't have a chance to take her out of the video. I'm not trying to beat this horse. She ran huge in the Demoiselle. Yes, you watch just this part, and she's coming up the rail, and she's getting a very good trip. But you're missing out in the early part when she was wide going the first turn. The race was won wire to wire. Muhima looked like she was going to be one of the stars of the division at this point. And yes, she didn't run well in the Honeybee, and we'll see what she does in the Ashland. This was a good effort. She's been training well, and she had absolutely no chance in her return race with a slow pace. She'd gotten sick and missed the race they wanted to go to down at Fairgrounds, and today is put up or shut up day for her. You are going to try to beat her, though, however, with Deloraine.
Yeah, my knocks on Ballerina d'Oro are sort of obvious in that she has no early speed. I don't think the pace in this race is going to be particularly to her liking, especially with Late Night Call coming out as well. And Liam in the Dust could have been a little bit more forward towards the outside. So I think that she's got that against her. I do like her getting a little bit more distance. I think that she had some legitimate things against her last time, but I think she's going to have to deal with some of those factors yet again, coming from as far back as she did in a race like the Demoiselle. And also the Demoiselle is a number that for a couple of horses stands out as being a career best so far for a couple of them, with some to regress in their next start. Muhima being one of them. Liam in the Dust did not run particularly well in her last start. Carmen's Candy Jar threw in 2 races subsequent to that were nowhere near as quick as the 73 that she had run when finishing 5th in the Demoiselle. So I just kind of want to see it again.
Okay.
At even money. But with a horse like Deloraine, I don't expect her to be on the lead, but I thought that she would be more forward than a horse
It's not
like
that much
Ballerina
faster than the
d'Oro.
2, Sarah. I mean, to be fair, it's fine and she's a price, but I don't see where she's going to be that much in front of the 2. Do you really think she's going to be more than a length and a half in front of the 2? Don't you think, if you think the 2 is going to be compromised by pace, now she's a bigger price, and that's fine, but I think she's going to be compromised as well.
I think she has the ability to be a little bit more forward, especially having the ability to be a little more forward on the turf, where we do see turf speed play a little bit more quickly than dirt speed. And I don't think she was that far off of it in her Suncoast, which was a race where La Cara was able to wire. And I think that her lap is pretty good as well. So I think
I disagree completely with that. I don't think she was fast in the turf at all. I don't think it was particularly fast-paced. That turf, we've seen 22 fractions on that turf course. I think you're making the mistake of equating a faster race. I don't think it was any faster than the race in the Suncoast, personally. I'm not. Listen, she's a bigger price. We'll see. We'll see. You may be right about the Demoiselle. It may be a bit of a phony race. I think one of the reasons I don't worry as much about the pace is that Vanilla Sunday is the speed. And if she wires the field, God bless her, it better be a big bias, because she took advantage of a huge gold rail last time.
I agree.
To be fair, it was her first time on a dry track, but she did ride a bias that really exaggerated her performance, and neither of us think she's going to do it again. Maybe we'll be wrong and she'll wire the field. What about early on? Take a look at her in the Virginia Oaks. We both have her second in this race.
I think she's okay.
I thought that this Virginia Oaks was a better race than the figure suggests, and I think she could be dangerous.
Yeah, I think she's one that's just taken a big step forward since getting over to a fast track in her later races this season, where she was able to break her maiden with that 71 and then go on to sort of show that that was no fluke, finishing second in here against better company and switching back off of Lasix. I think that she could be, I think she's the main other horse if you're looking for somebody else outside of your favorite.
What about Pure Beauty? I mean, she ran third last time with a basically a 3-wide trip at Gulfstream. The horse who won gave that G horse down in the Gulfstream Oaks
5G.
all she could handle, and running a big figure. I think she ran 1 point higher than she ran in this race, legitimizing it, and she improved in leaps and bounds going long for Shug. I mean, to me, I think she's kind of, if you want to take somebody moving forward, she might be the one. And while I agree with you on the 4, I think she's kind of the other player in there if you're against the 2. I'm not against the 2. You are. I think 7's dangerous. You're obviously not particularly fond of her, which is
She
fine.
can win. I mean, I think it's between the horses that we've discussed.
All right. Race number 10, the Carter, and we will move this along a little bit. All right. The Carter. So let's talk about Quince Brew. I'm not trying to beat Quince Brew. I think there's a chance that this is a really good horse. And you start taking him apart. He runs an 88 Beyer in his debut. He runs a 92 Beyer in his second start. Something clearly went wrong in the third start because he did not run well at 3 to 5. Then he comes back 7 months later and he runs a 98 Beyer, and then he runs a 101 Beyer. He wins on dry tracks, he wins on wet tracks, and I think there's a real possibility that this horse is one of the better sprinters in the country, to be honest with you. I'm looking forward to seeing him run today. He's going to be at least somewhat forward. And I think, I know he's 2 to 1. I think he might be pretty good.
I think he's good too. I don't have anything to really knock against him. I think that he's one that's taking all the right steps forward at the right time. I think that that last race was a big performance clearly by him, but even though he may not need to necessarily run a 101 to win this race, for me, just going in a different direction, I thought that he would just have to deal with some other pace in here.
But I don't think it's anybody that's that fast, and that includes Maximus Meridius, and we'll take a look at him beating Full Moon Madness. Now, this was a race where Full Moon Madness didn't break. The key to Full Moon Madness was breaking last time. Can he break again today? If he does, he's obviously dangerous. Maximus Meridius gets that cozy outside spot. He's got the outside post. He's got speed. He picks up
He's very
Joel.
game.
What worries me about him is his last race. What
It's a
excuse
concern.
did he have for last time?
And when you try to find one, you can say things like, okay, the winner was a horse that was in very good form for Jamie Ness, and
Please.
he was adding Lasix for the first time, and not every horse responds positively to the change of adding Lasix, and not every horse is at their absolute best at Parks, but he's run very well there in the past, so that's
a
not
bad
even
field.
really something that you can say.
His last race was a bad loss. He's got too many good races to be overly dismissive of him. He should get the right trip outside. I think he's dangerous, but it's hard to go too past his last race. Full Moon Madness, I wonder, is he going to be as good at 7 furlongs? But you know what? He's been very consistent, and if he can break, I think he'd be a player. I think Donegal Momentum
He's
is a
very
little bit
interesting.
interested getting back on the dirt. I believe, regardless what happens, that Tom made the right choice running here. It's hard to imagine him winning that Maker's Mark Friday at Keeneland with Carl Spackler and is it Integration, the Shug horse in there. That's a tough spot for him. And those were his first couple races. I know he didn't run well in the Amsterdam, but everybody kind of got run off their feet in that race. He's run some fast races. I don't want to discount him. We'll take a look at Crazy Mason's last race. We'll show a quick part of the start, and then we'll show the horse the run he puts in. I still don't think he's good enough to beat these horses, but he is a pretty cool horse.
And looking at it, the race where he was able to win over Radio Red is the less bet part of the entry. You kind of think that that's sort of an outlier or a one-off. Then he shows up with the ability to do it again when these are the types of exciting races where you think he just has absolutely no chance at all, and he's running against some horses that are legitimate where they have that good early speed like Toxic Ray. Even if he's taken a slight step back or two, he still has the good early speed, and he just inhales this field completely.
My problem is, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does here, he's still running figures that are too slow to win here. That's my problem. Now, to be fair, beat Radio Red, who came back and ran a huge number in his next start. So maybe he is a little bit better than these figures suggest. I don't know if he's going to be 5 to 1. I'm curious what price he's going
I
to be
was
in
curious
here
about that as well.
because he's the kind of horse that people might be like me and say he's just too slow, or he's the kind of horse like you and others that are going to say he's been very exciting. But he has a lot of flavor to this race. Looking for the Carter as we continue to move along, and we'll move along towards the Excelsior. And we'll take a look starting with Mazmac, who I put on top a little bit begrudgingly, but I don't trust the other two favorites in here. And he's got Mama's Gold, who he put away last time, but Mama's Gold's got to deal with Phileas Fogg. And so the pace should at least be honest in here. And while I don't love Mazmac, and I was wrong about him, I did not like him in this race, and I was dead wrong. He's improving for Rick, and at least with him, I feel like we're getting a horse that's in good form, that I trust to run a decent race. And I have some reservations about the likes of Krupe as well as Batten Down that we'll get to. So that's why I picked against them. But if Krupe or Batten Down run their better races, they're going to beat him in all likelihood. I just thought he may have more recency. I'm not in
He's
love
got
with him.
consistency. He doesn't need the lead like I think we believe a couple of others do to run their A
Well,
race.
it's not
Mama's
Nate
Gold
Spears.
or Phileas Fogg. He gets that nice outside post position. He has those races that he's been able to put together that show he's taking those slight steps forward and the ability to handle going the mile and an eighth. So I don't really see the mile and a quarter being a problem for him in this spot in particular. He makes some sense, but ultimately I kind of want to see him against competition quite like this.
Speaking of a mile and a quarter, I don't know. Is Krupe really going to be 4-1 in this race? Because as we look at the Suburban, I mean, it's like he was born for these mile and a quarter races. My problem with him is he's been lousy lately. Having said that, you can make some excuses, okay? Last time out, he didn't run particularly well in the Razorback, but it was a moderate-paced race on a track that was very kind to forward horses, and he probably, because the pace, had to be too close. Where in this race, where there's more pace, he can drop back. He was terrible in the Pegasus, but listen, he still only finished 4 lengths behind Locked, who went out to California and won by 100. His Clark was a stinker.
Yeah.
But it was the end of the year. I worry a little that he's kind of tailing off. On the other hand, I think there are some excuses, and maybe at 4-1, I should have put him on top. If those odds stick, I probably prefer Krupe. We'll see where they go. You've got him second. I don't see any argument against him.
Yeah, I was looking at putting him on top because I thought that the pace would be throughout the day. If the pace isn't honest in here, I don't really know what's going on. So I thought that I wanted a horse that would be coming from off the pace.
Right,
in a
but so
spot
you've
like
got
this.
Curbstone. How's he going to win?
So looking at recent form with Krupe, I do have the same doubts as you do, and I wanted a horse that would be coming from off the pace that I know can handle the distance. And stymie or not, it just seems as though this is the horse that has defeated Phileas Fogg in the past. When he gets those extra distances, I don't really see him having any problems with distance whatsoever, even if it was a little bit further than this. If I think the pace is going to heat up and I can sort of, in a way, draw a line through horses like Phileas Fogg as well as Mama's Gold, I don't really trust Batten Down as much if he doesn't get to have the lead or be as forwardly placed when he's been his most successful. And I wanted Krupe, well, I want the horse who has a little bit more recency and who also is going to have the same running style at a better price.
Okay, I don't get it, but okay. Good luck. He will be a big price. Certainly hope he wins for Tom and Maggie. Batten Down. We'll tell him winning the Ohio Derby, his second to last win. The problem, I think Batten Down is the horse to beat in here. He's got upside. He's got fast past races. He's only second off a layoff, et cetera, et cetera. My concern with him is he's only won when he has been allowed to control on the front end, and he has never won a race rating, and he ain't getting the lead in here, and that worries me a little bit. If he's able to rate in here, I think he's going to win, but I'm worried that he needs the lead to run his best races, and I think that's the simple argument against him.
Yeah.
The argument for him is he's good.
He is good. And even when he hasn't got the lead, he's still run well. But as far as the price that he's likely to be and just not seeing that from him yet, I wanted to go somewhere else.
So the Wood, race number 12. Post time is 6:17 for the Wood today. And it's going to be interesting to see who the favorite is. I was saying to David, I had thought Captain Cook would be favorite. And David said to me, maybe should have made Captain Cook the favorite. Every time I look, everybody's picking him. And that's kind of why I put him second. We will start with him. And obviously Omaha, distant third in there. I do think he's the horse to beat. He can handle the distance. He's lightly raced. For all reports, he's training very well for a very good trainer. He's not a horse that's going to be pace compromised, but he doesn't need the lead. I don't know what the chink in his armor is in this race. I just think he's very simply the horse to beat.
There's nothing that you can really knock. I agree completely. He's done nothing wrong up until this point. He's taken the progressive steps forward that you like to see. You mentioned not needing the lead, but having some forward position. You mentioned having the ability to handle the distance and have a win at the distance. They've had this race in mind all along, so it's not as though they've had to resort to plan B or C with him. He makes plenty of sense in here, and he doesn't need to be a part of what could be at least an honest pace. With
I
some
think
of
it's
these.
going to be a quick pace, but I still took the horse that's going to be, I believe, in front. I know the pace projector doesn't have him in front, and I understand that Sand Devil's quick, and I understand that Grandy's quick. But we'll take a look at Rodriguez in Robert Lewis when he finished a distant second to Citizen Bull. In my opinion, he is a horse that has been hurt badly by the fact that Bob Baffert has better
so
horses
many
or thinks
horses.
they're better horses, and they want to be on the front end. This guy has been controlling in one race in his career, and he ran 100 Beyer going a mile around 2 turns at Santa Anita. From what I've seen from Bob Baffert, and I'm laughing to myself because the reason I picked National Treasure in the Travers a couple of years ago was I said he's going to go to the front. Bob Baffert doesn't rate horses in big races.
That was
They
the
rated
one
him,
time.
he ran like crap, and then he started running great races when they put him on the front end. So Bob, don't let me down again. But with the rail and Mike Smith,
They have to go.
he's got to go. And the thing I like about Baffert is he ain't afraid to go too fast to go to the lead. Look at the race Matacat Road ran in the Rebel. If
you
he
mean
wants the
Cornucopia?
lead, he understands, I want the lead. That means and not the old, well, if somebody else wants it, let them have it and you'll rate. That's
No,
the
it's-
trainers, something that makes me crazy. If you want to be in front in a race, then you have to
Commit.
be committed to it. And I think he will be in here. We'll talk about Sand Devil, your top choice. Here he's second. Should we be worried that Flood Zone ran badly at UAE Derby? I am not.
I'm not either. I think there's just so many factors with going overseas that you can't really use that as a barometer of what we're going to see from Sand Devil today. And I think that he didn't necessarily lose anything in finishing second in here in what was a race that was controlled by forward position. He had that slight stumble out of the gate as well. And it seems as though, from what Linda Rice has been saying, she doesn't want him on the lead in a spot like this. She wants him to have some sort of forward position for sure, but not necessarily be the pace setter in the spot. And I don't think he's going to be either. And I
Then-
also want to see what he can do when he gets that little bit of extra distance to work with too.
If Linda is committing to not being aggressive, doesn't that make Rodriguez much the horse to beat?
If he was the only one that was going to be forward in here,
Do
but
you really think that Grande with Dylan is going to get into a heated duel against Bob Baffert and Rodriguez?
I think they're going to be forwardly placed. Don't
I
you?
do too, but I think if Linda is making the mistake of rating Sand Devil, and I don't like him at all if she does that, I think it's going to make the race easier for Rodriguez. Now, I'm not saying that she's going to win doing that. I'd be very careful. I hate when I hear trainers are all of a sudden talking about it, they don't want to be forward. And I have as much respect for Linda as anybody.
And I
but
do think she wants to be forward. I just don't think she wants him all out. on the lead.
I don't. Nobody wants to be all out forward, and I think that's why Rodriguez may be a little bit intimidating these horses. Now, listen, there are some people I respect that like Grande, and we'll take a look at his last race. My biggest problem with this race is, frankly, he's got to get faster to win. The problems took place in Florida. We don't always see those performances get reproduced. And he beat a horse in Jimmy's Dailies who was no factor whatsoever in the Florida Derby last week.
I agree. And he's won both of his races doing so one way. And I think that he can have some forward position here, like we've said, but I don't think he's getting the lead over Rodriguez. And so with a horse that I think a lot of people are
He
interested
doesn't need
in.
the lead, by the way. I don't think either. Just to be fair to people, this horse has been winning stalking, so it's not like he needs the lead.
No, I don't think he
Yeah.
needs the lead to win, but he's not going to be a good enough price for me to see him take that step forward. And also, if there are other horses that want to be forward here, where is he going to be setting up shop, even though he was successful not having the lead to get those 2 victories? I know that he's handled the mile in an eighth. I know that that's something people look at as being in
Well,
his
distance is
favor.
clearly no problem for him. I mean, that is fair.
Sure, but I don't know. I just didn't think that he was going to be a fair enough price for a horse that needs to get faster, too.
I agree with you. I agree with everything you said there. My price horse in here is McAfee. I was watching the Gotham again, and it really, to me, I don't think he ran that badly. He didn't run great, but it was his first start in, 3.5 months. He's out of position there. I thought he actually ran okay. And I thought he was a little bit interesting at a price to maybe get a piece. He's my bomb. Do you have any? But you
I
have the
do.
12, Omaha.
Yeah, if you think this pace is going to be honest and you're looking for a horse to come pick up some pieces, he's done really nothing wrong. I mean, he's been able to run at the distance twice and pick up some pieces. I think that he's one that, yes, of course, he's pace compromised, but that might not be a problem in a spot like this.
Supposed to get
And
pace.
he's shown that he can hang against great graded stakes types of horses on the road to this Kentucky Derby. Do I think that he's winning this race? No.
No,
but
no. The
I
point
want
is,
him in the bottom of my
right? Who are
Super
the
for
horses
sure.
like the 10? Like I same thing as you with that. I mean, I guess Statesman is not totally impossible. I think we tend to give him more look because it's Shug, Passion Rules, same thing for Brad Cox.
Sure.
And I'm not going to make fun of Calumet for running a horse that I think's too slow in here because they did that a few years ago with a 70-1 shot and he won the race in Bourbonic. So Calumet is playing with house money. Going to be a fun Wood Memorial, the 100th running of the Wood Memorial. I was there for, I want to say, well, not the 51st, 52nd, because we canceled in 2020. We never ran the Wood. But what I saw live was Bold Forbes in 1976. One of the things I remember about it was I was sitting with my grandmother in the grandstand, and a lot of people may not know this about Andy Beyer. Before he became a biking enthusiast, he used to run. And there's two funny stories. One is I saw him running down the stretch to get interviews, and I was with my grandmother, and I ran down to talk to him. But there used to be a race, the Sokolov Gold Cup, where Pete Sokolov put up money, and it was for anybody that worked around the racetrack. Anybody, you could work at the track, you could work in the press, and they run one lap around the track. I think Pete put like $100, $150, and Andy ran a lot. And I think the first year or two he did it, Andy won. But then some of the athletes in Saratoga High caught wind of the race, and they started running. And I remember I convinced Buddy Clark, who went to high school with me, and Buddy was a tremendous basketball player. He wasn't, I think he was about 6'1", 6'2". He had a really great vertical leap, but he was a sprinter. He was fast, and he was wearing his white cap, and I went and convinced him to run, and he did not do very well. And he said to me after the race, you try running around that track, a mile and an eighth. But I think Zoe Anderson, I think that she won it, who went to high school with me, and she was a cross-country track star.
Yeah.
And she won it easily. So once the
You didn't get out
competition
the
got
horse suit?
deeper, Andy got smoked in the Sokolov Gold
That's
Cup. Race number 13 to close it out. Sorry, I had to digress a little bit.
great.
We'll take a look at Dolomite and Fast and Frisky running second and third. I don't have a big knock on Dolomite. He's the horse to beat. I don't know. I'm just getting a little tired of him.
Yeah, when you've seen a horse finish second at the short prices she's been over the last two and finishing second even the start before that, I respect the company that this one has been keeping, but at a very short price yet again, and what's an interesting field all around. I just wanted to go with somebody else on top, though. I'm not going to let Dolomite beat me in any sort of multi-race sequence by any means.
And you and I have both fallen on Swedish Princess, a horse that in her day when she runs her race is good enough to win, and I think we both saw that.
Yeah, just company kept over the past several starts, really. You can excuse the Bay Ridge as being a little bit out of depth for this one. And I thought that the pace would at least be somewhat honest in here with the presence of Snap and Buttons in a spot like this.
Amazing. Dottie's probably got to go from the
Who
rail
knows what
area.
Ariana Rye is
Right.
going to do, but she can be forward, and we've seen her be forward more often than not. So I just like that she had some back class to go to, and she's been facing some good horses overall. Might get the right kind of setup today.
All right. Sarah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for putting up with us for the last hour. We'll head over to Naira Bets. Use the promo code MATCH200. We'll match up to $200 of your initial deposit. We have, what do we have? The $5,000 hit and split in the early pick four. I've gotten good at using the backboard on that. And that's it. We got a show, 12 to 7. Got to hurry up there shortly. We'll start out, and the first race we'll show, in fact, will be the Shima Classic. Romantic Warrior, who really is truly, if not the best, one of the best horses in the world. He's certainly been a tremendous turf runner, and I thought his effort in the Saudi Cup on dirt, first time on dirt, was great. Forever Young will close it out in the Dubai World Cup. Two horses that are going to be odds on. Thanks again, Sarah. Thank you. Chris Griffin has a big day ahead of him. He's up next, the reprise, the Scratched and Changes. Have a great day.
Horse racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got 'em. Huge payouts? You bet. With Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet with Naira Bets. Join now for a new member bonus at NairaBets.com.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Aqueduct. At this time, we ask that you please rise, remove your caps as we honor America with the playing of the national anthem. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the New York Racing Association and live racing here at Aqueduct. It's Wood Memorial Day. Today we'll have the 100th running of the Wood Memorial. 13 races on today's card. The track is rated fast. Here are today's scratches and changes at Aqueduct. Race 1, start of the early pick 5. Post time has been adjusted. First post today will be 12:30. 12:30 first post for race 1. Race 2, beginning of the early pick 4. Post time has been moved to 1:05. Post time will be 1:05 for race 2. Race 3, mandatory payout in the pick 5. Mandatory payout pick 5 in today's third. Post time will be 1:40. Scratch the 1, Braca. The 4, 3 pounds over. And the 8 is +2. Race 4, start of a middle pick 4. Post time will be 2:10. Scratch the 8, Retail Man. Scratch the 8 in race 4. Race 5, start of a mandatory payout pick 5. Post time 2:40. The 5 is +2. Scratch the 6, Coco Sun. And the 9 is 3 pounds overweight. Race 6, start of a pick 4. Post time will be 3:10. The 5 will run in 2 open-toe bar shoes again. Scratch the 6, Winter's Ghost. Scratch the 7, Z-Bear. Race 7, mandatory payout pick 5. Post time will be 3:40. Scratch the 6, a Royal Spa. Race 8, beginning of a pick 6. Post time will be 4:10. Scratch the 8, St. Gaudens. Race 9, start of the late pick 5. Post time will be 4:40. Scratch the 1, Late Night Call. The 5 is +2. And scratch the 8, Liam in the Dust. Race 10, start of the late pick 4. Post time will be 5:10. Scratch the 8, Sheriff Bianco. Race 11, post time 5:40. Scratch the 1, Film Star. And the 3 is a Ridgeling. Race 12, post time will be 6:17. Scratch the 6, Hill Road. Scratch the 9, Bear Claw Necklace. Rider change on the 10 in race 12. Jockey change on the 10 in race 12. Make the jockey Joel Rosario. Race 13, post time 6:49. Scratch the 11, Monetary Monarch. 13 races on today's card. The track is rated fast. 52 minutes away as first post time. Move to 12:30 for race 1. Race 1 will be the start of the early pick 5. A few mandatory payout pick 5s on the card as well. It's all coming up on this Wood Memorial Day, the 100th running of the Wood Memorial this afternoon. The track is fast at Aqueduct. It's next. Good luck.
Horse racing? Check. Weekly promotions? Got 'em. Huge payouts? You bet. With Naira Bets. Download the app today and bet on any track, anywhere, anytime with live HD horse races, betting tips and tutorials, expert picks, and more. You bet with Naira Bets. Join now for a new member bonus at NairaBets.com.